Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am joined by Dr. Richard Clabaugh, who shares a firsthand look at what it really feels like to step into a practice acquisition. Not the polished version, but the real one. The uncertainty, the pressure, the moments where things don't go as planned, and the decisions that shape what comes next. His story is a reminder that growth doesn't happen all at once. It happens through small shifts, tough days, and the willingness to keep moving forward. In this episode, we're walking through that journey from the early challenges to where things stand today. So let's dive in. And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, if your new patient follow-up depends on someone remembering, it's leaking revenue. Greyfinch automates new patient follow-up, texts and emails go out automatically, and your treatment coordinator just checks their tasks list to see what needs a quick call or a more personalized message. That is one of the many reasons I recommend everyone take a look at Greyfinch. It isn't just a follow-up tool, it's a complete practice management software built to help you grow and scale. Stop leaking revenue and get $500 off your startup fee with the Jill Allen special at greyfinch.com/Jill Allen. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Richard, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs today with me.
It's a huge privilege. You are one of my favorite people, your whole team. And this is a crazy experience for me because if you had told me 9 or 10 years ago that we were going to sit down and do a podcast together, A, I'm not sure I would have known what a podcast was, but B, I would have never thought I could have been here. And really, it's probably because of you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. So the way I like to start off the podcast is just to have my guests talk a little bit about who they are, how they got to where they're at. And I think especially for you, it's always a really special episode for me when I get to have a previous client on and just kind of talk about the journey that it took to go from the decision-making component of, am I going to pursue a startup? Am I going to do an acquisition?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can just start us off by just a little history in case somebody doesn't know who you are, and then also just where you're at now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my name is Richard, and I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and kind of started out in college thinking I was going to be an engineer, and ultimately changed. Thought I was going to be a dentist then, and I practiced general dentistry for a couple of years, and I loved it, but kind of fell in love with ortho, and so went back to school. And for a while, had a plan to go back to kind of the middle of Kansas and practice. And the longer I got into residency, the more it became obvious that practice was not going to work out. The doctor was just changing some plans. And really thought to my time in general dentistry when I got to practice for a couple of years after dental school. And I learned a lot of things from that doctor. It was a very high functioning practice. He did just awesome work, awesome guy. Patients loved him, town loved him. I learned a lot of things, but as an associate there, I had kind of felt this pressure where I had like all the responsibility, but maybe not the authority I wanted to make some of the decisions that I felt like for me to do the best job for patients I wanted to do. And so I kind of carried that with me a little bit that, man, maybe the next step, I wanted to try and own my own practice so that I could have equal parts of authority and responsibility together. And so really that led me to think I wanted to buy. And so then really got down that path. I'd sent out a bunch of letters towards the end of orthodontic residency, kind of blanketed all the areas that we thought we were going to go to, and had a few bites, things that were working. I was set to buy a practice, and then it fell through the week before graduation. And so I had kind of this string of things that just led me to have to say, am I really in on this or not? And all in all, like long story short, I kind of ended up looking at about 35 practices. So that sounds like you're buying a house, not a practice. But it was like 35 practices. My wife and I had to come back on this and make sure that wasn't a lie. And ultimately, my heart was just set on buying. And I ended up kind of buying this practice. It's been 10 years now. And I'm really thankful. It's a bunch of work, but there's a lot of really good things that come from it. And the heart and soul of what I wanted, which was being able to make some of the decisions that go along with the practice, but also having the authority to make the changes I thought were important. That's been there. And so I'm thankful for that. It's some days are harder than others. Some days are better than others. But it seems every time that there's a dark day, there's always a bright corner that's coming. And part of that is people like you that have been a big help along the way.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for saying that. And I think what's so fun about your story is we've known each other for 10 years now. And this is a decision that I think or I would say almost every orthodontist wrestles with. Am I going to partner into a practice? Am I going to buy a practice and do an acquisition? Am I going to do a startup? Or maybe I don't see this as much. I'm going to spend my career as an associate. I think that it may start off thinking that looks great, but usually by about that eight-year mark, if somebody's been doing that for a while, they're like, okay, I think I'm ready for one of the other three options here.
Yeah.
And the reason that I wanted to have you on is number one, I think I'm pretty well known for doing startups in the orthodontic consulting realm, but we also do a lot with acquisitions. And I just think that it's a different story because I think a lot of people think, and you'll have to tell me what you thought, but an acquisition is easy. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to step into somebody else's practice and I'm just going to be able to just jump right in and things are going to be wonderful and the team is going to love me and just all of those things. And what you and I both know, and I think anybody who's listening who's done an acquisition is it is a lot of hard work. Sometimes I think from my perspective, getting to see both, probably more work doing an acquisition than it is a startup. And so I want to just take a kind of a walk down memory lane with you and, kind of have you think back to when we were talking and when you were thinking about, okay, I'm making this decision to do the acquisition. And I want to just kind of walk through because I think you definitely didn't step in there where it was just rose-colored glasses from the beginning. And I want to talk about kind of your journey as we have went through this in the year that we worked together, but then as you have went year after year, growing into the business owner that you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's parts that are easier and then there's parts that are harder. And so it really is which of those sets of pros and cons do you want to take? My mindset with buying something that was already running, I felt like there was already some systems in place. There was already cash flow. There was already some reputation. There was patients for me to see. There was structure of some degree. And I felt like that would help me just hit the ground running. When I thought about a startup, just with my personality and what I didn't say in my story there was I had a couple of large gaps between graduating orthodontic residency and then actually getting to this practice. There was a couple of very large gaps because I was just looking and you got to do due diligence. You got to look at the profit and loss statements. I had an accountant that was helping me the whole time to evaluate all this stuff. Is this a viable opportunity? So as I thought about these practices that I was looking at, I was asking myself a few questions. The first one was, am I going to practice the same way? as this person that I'm looking at their practice, because those are two really different things. If they're going one way and I'm trying to go a different way, you're kind of fighting headwinds that you wouldn't have had to fight maybe if you had done something a different way. And it's going to sound odd, but are they driving the practice like a Ferrari and you're going to drive it like a Honda? Because you're going to pay big money for a practice that's maybe being pushed to the max. And if you don't have that desire, you're going to pay for it, but then you're not really going to maybe reap the benefits because you're going to do something different. And so ultimately I settled on to a practice that I felt had great bones. I think we talk about houses that way. Like it's got good bones, but we can knock some walls out and do stuff and make it our own. And so I settled into something that I felt had great bones. I don't know what else to say, except I just had a gut feeling after looking at all those different practices that I said, okay, I think this is the one. And there were many that I had gone to that I just said, it's not for me. There's nothing wrong with the practice or the doctor. The staff was great, but I was just, for whatever reason, maybe it was location, maybe it was too much money. I didn't want to get into that much debt. Maybe it was how they practiced. I didn't want to do that thing. But ultimately, I just had a gut instinct. And I think maybe it's crazy to some people, but I think our instincts are worth listening to. I'm not saying we should trust all of our feelings, because a feeling could just be a bad taco from the night before. So you got to be a little careful with what you feel and go for. But yeah, I settled into something that I felt was good bones. It had a reasonable price tag on it that I felt like I could pay that debt back without being unnecessarily burdened. And then really I had an opportunity to go up. So I felt like with me putting my fingerprint on it, I could begin to do that and make changes in a positive direction. Again, if you buy something that's so highly efficient, so perfect from the start, it almost feels like you got no place to go but down. And that really wasn't a place I wanted to put myself in right off the bat. And the decision to try and purchase for me was really, this felt like a good fit. It felt like I could do some good here. It felt like I could settle in with the skill set I had and grow with the practice. And I think ultimately that's why we pulled the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think number one, this is unheard of, I think, nowadays, but to think you had, what did you say, 35 practices that you looked at?
Yeah.
Had
Yeah. And some of those were obviously more detailed than others, right? Some of them were just like an initial call, but some of them we looked at a lot of P&Ls for a lot of places. I visited a lot of practices. Yeah.
What a blessing to be able to even have that opportunity. I think nowadays a lot of my docs are like, I'm lucky if I can find one in the area that, that I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
What a blessing to have that, a plethora of
agreed.
practice opportunities, but then to be able to kind of see an opportunity and have the fortitude within yourself to say, hey, if I just hard work, I can take this into something else. And I'm curious if when you're kind of looking back at some of the decisions that you were making with even just that, are there things that you look back at now and go, gosh, I would have, because this has been a great practice for you, but are there any, if you were to say, hey peer who's listening, these are some things that having done this that I might have put more emphasis on, or I may have 10 years in now, I may have maybe cared less about or more about, as when you look back that way?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably a mark of being a humble person, that you look back and you say, I kind of messed that up a little bit. And I'm trying to grow in that humility. But I think there's things we did well. The things we did well, I think, where we came in with a mindset that was, this isn't perfect, but we're going to give it our all. I remember spending late nights here. This is going to sound wild, especially to the newer graduates, but the doctor that was here had to submit plaster models for a large number of his patients to have the insurance approved. And so he made those. And so there was a big backlog. He had been sick, he had cancer, and he ended up passing away shortly after I bought the practice. But I was here till midnight for, I think it was weeks, just like catching up on plaster models and that kind of stuff. And really, I did it. I was excited. I was excited that I finally had the opportunity to use the skill set that I'd trained all these years for, that I put all this money into. And I honestly don't remember being like bitter or anything. And my wife was so supportive in that. So I think we came in with the right attitude on that. The changes I'd make, I think one of the biggest ones would be where is my focus during the day? And so I came in feeling like the biggest focus had to be on patient care. And I wasn't wrong, but I think I unnecessarily maybe overlooked the health of the team that was shouldering alongside me to make this all possible. And I probably didn't think about as much as I could have how I could help them, because that's a big change for the team too, to go from one doctor to another doctor. And I probably could have asked more questions. How are you guys processing with this? This is obviously a big change. I probably could have been a little bit slower to make changes to the employee manual or the time off policy or the vacation policy or the PT, all of that stuff. I think I could have been slower to do that and just really prioritize, hey, this is my core group of people. And how can I help you feel comfortable in this process? Because if you get there and you got a bunch of patients and you got things rolling, but you have nobody to help you, it's a pretty lonely process. And so I think I would have emphasized, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I think I'd go back and just emphasize the value and worth of the people that are shouldering alongside you to accomplish the same goals that you're trying to get after, and how you can support them. Be sure that the water, like all the ripples in the waters, have kind of settled for them. Meanwhile, you also have to be great at what you're doing orthodontically. But I think that's part of the burden of just being captain of the enterprise. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're driving the ship. And if you want to be done at 5 p.m. and out and zero responsibility until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., it's probably not going to be a super easy adjustment, at least on the acquisition side, because there's a lot that I could have done better on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, we all have those moments when we look back, the farther we
Yeah.
get in our careers. I can say the Jill who owns Jill Allen and Associates 20 years in is very different than the Jill who owned Jill Allen and Associates 20 years ago. Right. And, just what it takes to things that I thought were, same with you, I thought were important, but maybe the focus energy could have been maybe distributed differently as I think. And that's just, I think that's the beauty of growing into yourself as a leader and as a business owner, that we get to have the grace to be like, yeah, I could have done that a little better, but I'm still here and where I'm at.
Yeah. I think you brought up a really important word, and I love it. And that is energy. And you probably emphasized that while you were here. But it really, I think that walking in the morning, there's days I would definitely take a deep breath before I open the back door. And just, I think you said it this way. You said you have to realize that when you walk in the office, you're on stage. And I've never forgotten that you've said that, because it's really is true. And so I think you have to be willing to adopt that mentality, not in a way that you have to spend your life trying to be somebody you're not, but in the way that you recognize that all the little things matter, and you're the leader that's helping set the tone for how everybody's going to act, how everybody's going to treat everybody else, how your patients are going to feel. And it's a tiresome thing. Like, leadership can sometimes be tiresome and lonely. And that's not a fault of leadership. It's just how it goes. And I think I might not have been as ready for that as I thought I was, but having great people like you and other doctors that I've talked to along the way, I think has helped reduce some of those feelings. But it is like, during the day, you are the top of the food chain. And so you need to be willing to accept that, to own it, and have people be able to look at you and say, okay, where are we going? And you have a clear vision and direction, because people want to know what we're doing, like the organization, where are we going and how are we going to get there? And if you have the deer in the headlights look and you're like, I don't know, your team isn't going to feel super great.
Yeah.
So your idea of energy, like I love the energy, because you got to bring it every day because you're on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny that you remember that, because that is something I say a lot. So
Yep.
let's think back to those first years, especially the first couple years, and just that reality of ownership is kicking in. And I've got this group of team members that may or may not be going in the same direction that I am.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just what were some of those bigger challenges that maybe you didn't expect were going to happen, or that were kind of like, that didn't see that coming, or let's talk a little bit about that.
I was trying to remember exact dates, and I don't remember exactly, but I think you joined us maybe 9 months into ownership, and we were a year together. And I think in the review I wrote for you after it was all over, I wrote something about your almost prophetic abilities. Because when you came, you talked about just the changes that could happen with the team. And they were scary to me to think about that because you were talking about you could face some pretty significant turnover here.
Yep.
And I had just taken it for granted that these people are going to be here to do the jobs that need to get done so that I can take care of patients. And that's one of the biggest things I missed. And so to answer your question, there was some good stability for a matter of months, but then there was some changes that began to happen as we started to implement some of the things that you had instructed us with. No fault of yours. It was good stuff that had to happen, but there was just a different mindset between where we were going and then where maybe other people felt like they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I've tried over the course of time to learn to actually feel this way. Sometimes I have to still just tell myself, but I don't think that any employee is ever out to get me, right? I don't think any employee, for the most part, is probably out to get anybody. Everybody's probably out to do the best they can for themselves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So when things happen that don't go my way, like how do I respond to that? And do I learn from it? Do I say, okay, what could I have done better? And I've tried to get better at that over time. But probably the hardest thing to answer your question was I think I started out with 7 or 8 staff. There was some part-time help in there. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while. But about the time that my second child was born in February of 2017, I think I had four resignations within a 2 or 4 week period. And it was pretty significant. It was the office manager, it was the treatment coordinator, and a couple of assistants. And so what ended up happening was my wife had to come in and help in the office.
Yep.
And she was 2 weeks postpartum doing all the jobs. She had no idea what she was doing. And then we hired a lady who had never been in an ortho office before. And so between my wife and this other lady, they had a grand total of, I think, 2 weeks of experience. And they're running the whole show up in front. And so the biggest challenge at that point was how do we just keep the ship moving forward? Meanwhile, you've got all the clinic load in the back. And you were a big help in that. But I mentioned the clinic load. The hard part is, meanwhile, you've got all the patients that need care. So the practice I stepped into, I think it was like 900 active patients. And there have been some challenges along the way. I think that with the prior doctor maybe having the cancer diagnosis and stuff, things had just gotten behind. And so there were some challenges, just how do you keep the day moving? And you probably remember this, but our schedule was made out every day in Microsoft Word.
Yep.
Yeah, Microsoft Word. So it would literally just say 8 a.m. and then it would just have 3 patient names. You didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know why they were there. And it was every, I think, 15 minutes that you just see this list of names. And I was seeing 75 patients a day. And some of these people had been in treatment 18 months and they didn't have braces on the bottom teeth yet. It was just, there was a lot of things. And so my mind was very busy with the clinical side, but I think that kind of distracted me from the important parts on just the team health side. And ultimately we were able to make it through that. God provided for us in that. And I hope at some point we're going to talk about just like, how did you get those great people and what did you look for? Because I've got some things to say on that. But yeah, that was probably the biggest one. 4 resignations in 2 to 4 weeks. That was just, I think I would go home and just say, are we going to survive or are we just going to be done? What's happening?
Yeah. And I can remember a lot of those conversations and, the hardest part, and I tell this to a lot of my docs that are doing acquisitions, is the reality of it is there is a good chance that by the end of your first year, you could have an entire team turnover. And I think that is such a scary thing to hear. And the reality of it is it has nothing to do with you necessarily as the doctor, but it has to do more with the situation of the change. And a lot of times the employees that you are that come along with the practice were maybe the dream team employees for a different doctor who had different goals, views, and visions. And
Yeah.
when you come in as a new doctor and you have different goals, views, and visions, and you
Hmm.
just assume that a team is going to assimilate into your goals, views, and visions, it doesn't always go well. And I just want to
Yeah.
point this out for anybody who's listening. That doesn't mean that you as a doctor are doing it wrong or that your goals, views, and visions are wrong. But we do have to understand, and you made this point, that I do believe everybody, each one of us has our own core values, our own
Hmm.
core vision of where we want our life to go. And they aren't always going to line up. A
Hmm.
team that, especially I see this a lot in acquisitions where I've got a team that's maybe been coasting with the doctor. There isn't a lot of demand. They're kind of winding
Hmm.
down their schedule. It's pretty comfortable. That's a very different work environment than when you get a hungry young doc that's coming in and saying, I got loans to pay and I got this, that, and the
Yeah.
other, and we're going
Yeah.
to breathe life. We're going to put some oxygen onto this fire here and we're going to take
Yeah.
it in a different direction. And so I
Mm.
think you definitely had to experience this and you walked through the fire for sure. I can remember training with Heather and training with the new TC that had no clue. And we've even with some
Yeah.
of the turnover and just not only are we training team members, but now we're building a schedule that accommodates, and we were doing some treatment modality shifting around too, taking the practice from
Yeah.
one vision of how the practice was being run to another.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think why I especially wanted you on to talk about this was you went through the fire. And I think so many
Yeah.
people think that just stepping in, and I don't want it to sound like it's doomsday by any means, because I think once
Right.
we get past it and through it, it's beautiful. But you're definitely doing the hard work
Yeah.
in those first couple years to right the ship.
Yeah. And this is going to sound wild, but even though you told me there's a really good chance you're going to turn over your team, and even though you're telling people right now there's a really good chance you're going to turn over your team, I still thought inside of me, "Ah, that's okay. You think that, but it's not going to happen." That's still what I thought. And so I think that the earlier that I had come to terms with the idea that that was not as secure as I thought it was, and that it was no reflection on me, and so almost just to say, yes, this is going to happen, I think that would have been better for me mentally. And again, like nobody's out to get you. I don't, for the most part, nobody's out to
Yeah.
get you, but you need to be out to get the right people because you got to go places. And so I think I would have just sat down. I'd probably go back and I'd sit down individually and I'd probably say, look, I'm super glad you're here. And I know this is a big change for you. It's a big change for me too. Here's what I understand that you do here. I would love for you to keep doing that here. I want to share with you where I see this going. And I want to know if you're on board with that, if you also see that vision, or if you feel like this is the time where you'd like to make a change. And that almost sounds like a scary conversation, but I'd kind of rather know than just wonder for a while what's happening. And
Yeah.
I think just telling somebody, I want you here, and leaving it in their court, what do you want? And if they're like, no, I'm out, at least let's get that out of the way. And then the people that are there, it's kind of like a purifying event where what's left is this is a really good group of people and let's go. But everything's out on
Yeah.
the table and we're kind of ready to launch into what you're going to do. So yeah, that's a great point. That's a challenging part of the purchase, at least my story.
And I think I just want to say this. I think it's most doctors in an acquisition. If we're in
Okay.
that million or less practice, maybe a little different story if you're that 2 million plus practice. But if you're that 1.5 million or less practice, there really is this moment where everybody's got to make these decisions. And the other thing that I just want to say to this point is I think it can be really easy for us, especially when we're new owners, to take it really personal that, oh my gosh, they're
Yeah.
leaving and it's me.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is they're probably not leaving. Maybe you were the catalyst to it, but it's usually not your person that they're leaving because of. And I just try and give and say, if we've got those team members that it's time to make that change, send them away with love. Don't harbor this negative energy. Number one, who's got time for that?
Yeah.
But number two, getting back to okay, now we've opened up a space to get the right people in that are going to be on board with my values, my vision, and where we're going with the practice.
Yeah.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Want a cleaner workflow for orthodontic cases? Meet Clarity Solutions from Solventum, formerly 3M Healthcare. The Clarity portal puts aligners, digital bonding, and retainers in a single streamlined platform. One workflow, fewer handoffs, and more control for planning through retention. Simplify your next case. Reach out to your local Solventum sales rep today or visit us at go.solventum.com/clarity. Again, that is go.solventum.com/clarity to learn more.
And that leads me into the point that you just said. I would love to hear kind of how that change happened for when you started really focusing on, okay, I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons here. I've got openings. We've done some hard work, but now I can start to identify who's the right people. Who do I want? What am I looking for out of employees to really build that team that becomes this foundation for your vision of your practice and the culture that you now have an opportunity to completely and totally cultivate.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, I was a little shell shocked and probably just made me a little gun shy of like, where's this going? And when you're down that many people, you need people. And I probably felt more of a need almost to sell myself on the people that were interviewing with me to like, they need to want to be here. They need to like me. And that was like backwards. So what should have happened is to recognize, and I think this is true in all of ortho, we do amazing stuff and we have an amazing gig to offer.
Yeah.
These are great jobs. And we should be proud of what we have to offer to people and how we can help hopefully make their lives full, because it should be way more than just a paycheck. If all I see is my team members as people that get paychecks and they check things off the list for me, I'm missing out, they're missing out, my attitude is way wrong. So when it really started to get better for me is when I realized the kind of jobs that we have to offer. And I want to find people that value that. And honestly, people that I just want to be around all day. And so I would rather almost scare somebody away on the day of their interview, because if they still show up, I know that I can be the worst version of myself and they're going to stick around. But so, yeah, I think now I'm at a point where I'm just like, I'm going to tell you exactly how it is on day one and maybe even make it a little cloudy. And if you're still in, hey, we're going to do this thing together and it's going to be great. And so I think things started to change when I got a couple people that saw that and wanted in on it and then stuck around for a long period of time. And what I didn't expect was that sometimes after people would leave, some terminations, some resignations, I thought that'd probably be the end of our time talking. And what I've realized over the course of time is I still talk with some of these people for various reasons. They would reach out, they're working at a different office now, and they kind of remembered we did something this way. They liked the way we did it. Can you tell us how we can do better? Oh, that's cool. Or people that are maybe like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe coming back. What do you think? Or people that just kind of thought it was greener on a different side, and I totally get why you'd think that, but they wanted back. And so I think what you said about not burning bridges and leaving things in a really good space, you're so right. You're so right. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? It's hard to, again, not take it personally and to be like, oh, they're quitting or they're leaving or whatever. Away with them. You're shunned.
Yeah.
Versus just, yeah, maybe this is the best decision for their life right now.
Yeah.
And I truly believe things will always work out. They will
Yeah.
always find their way to a better, even the hardest, the best employees. Sometimes they need to leave us, and it can be the best decisions and opportunities for our practices that
Yeah.
we just can't see until we have that
Yeah.
rear view perspective when
Good
we're
point.
looking back. So let's talk a little bit about, as you have matured in your position as a leader and an owner over the last 10 years, let's talk about how you started to maybe shift the mindset of team members and really start to bring in, what does it look like to bring your vision in and what you want patients to experience out of the practice and the interaction that they have with you and your
Yeah.
team now. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think, again, when we're taking over a practice, you're working into or backing into somebody else's vision, somebody else's patient experience, somebody else's, whatever mindset on
Yeah.
whatever culture means or lack of culture. And as you have come into this and walked through this and started to, sometimes you have to burn, what do they say, burn it down to build it back up again to a point. Let's talk about how that has changed for you as you've been moving into your 10 years of now doing this and really coming into yourself as a senior doctor in a practice with a solid team, and what that has looked like over the years.
Yeah. I say all of this with a cautious optimism because I know that tomorrow can bring anything, right? I love my team so much right now. They're just fantastic, both as team members, but also as friends. I know there are folks that would say you should not be friends with your coworkers, especially when you're the boss. And I understand that. And I think that there are proper boundaries. But I think the fact that we care about each other in a genuine way with proper guardrails and all that kind of stuff, don't hear me wrong. But the fact that we genuinely care for each other helps us work harder for each other too. And we want to pull the weight for each other. We know that we see the task as a whole and nobody's above any job. So if I need to help out some night and take out the garbage, I don't have a problem with that. If I need to do some stuff that normally I wouldn't do, I don't have a problem with that. And I try to model that from top down so that other people are also, I'm happy to pitch in anywhere. And then the more tenured people then continue to model that for the ones that are younger. And I think it's just a mindset overall that hopefully we begin to set as doctors to say, here's how I see the vision. And I'm not above these things. And I don't expect anybody else to be above them either. So I think it starts at the top. That's my mindset. And then we have a set of core beliefs that we periodically recite and try to just recenter ourselves. So we just talked about it this past week, like an NCAA coach. There's probably times at practice that they go back to basics and things that these players have heard thousands of times. They do them again because you need to come back to this stuff. I was watching, what was it, the Duke game? End of the game, Boozer gets the ball, makes a pass that I know instantly he wishes he could have taken back. And they end up losing the game. He ends up losing the game, breaking a press, right? Something they've probably talked about a million times. But going back to the basics for us and what we believe. So things like we believe in our mission. We believe in the golden rule. We believe in a patient-centric attitude. We believe in honesty. We believe orthodontics is a team sport. We believe that excellence is not an accident. We believe that rebounding from mistakes is essential. And we do not believe in being mediocre. So we go through these things as a team so that everybody hears the same stuff and we're always thinking the same thing. So we try and do that in a morning huddle or an evening huddle and just constantly come back to this stuff. And then, so I think when people started to hear the same things, I began to see a shift. And then now I've been super thankful and I'm just so fortunate. I praise the Lord for it. I'm just thankful to God for giving me some team members that have been around a long time and that just do fantastic work. And so they're guiding the younger ones. who I'm also super thankful for. And these girls kind of grab a piece of your heart, and you just want to do your best for them, and they want to do their best for you. And sometimes they break your heart, and that's just the way that it goes. But
Yep.
I always say it's my name on the door, but you guys are the heart and soul of this whole thing. And so I love it when we get reviews and we read reviews at the end of the day. And so when we get a review online, I love it when that review highlights one of the team members, because I love to make a big deal about it. And I love to just almost I try to make them blush if I can. I'm not always successful, but I love that. So I love the ones that don't even mention me. It's all about the team. The whole thing is just about the scheduler up front and the ladies in the back and whoever got us started. I love it when I'm not even part of it, because that tells me that everybody's doing what they should do. If I just fade into the background, mission accomplished.
Yes, I love that. And I just really appreciate you saying this, because I really do believe that we don't always see this, I think, as brand new business owners. But as you mature and as you come into that leadership role and really start to do exactly what you've done, cultivate what it really means, the values that you are making a part of your in and out daily practice, it really becomes the foundation of your business. And I have got to believe that having all of these pieces in place now also makes it very easy for you to see if you happen to hire somebody or bring somebody onto the team that just is rubbing against the grain. Makes it easier to see that maybe, again, we all make mistakes. We all think somebody is going to be great, and maybe something in their life changes, or we miss something along the way and they just don't end up being the best fit. And again, we send them away with love and find the right person. But has it become easier, do you think, in working with, knowing those values, those, what did you call them?
Our beliefs, yeah.
Core beliefs, to when, even from the lens of I'm hiring somebody to come into my family, come into that fold. Have you noticed that has even made it easier now that you've really got those solidified and in place?
It's definitely helped provide clarity for me. And I think the last 2 hires we've done, I've actually had the team do the majority of the process. I'm not even involved. And they basically get to a spot where they come down to 1 or 2 people and they say, this is who we'd like to work with. And so that's been a real great thing for me, because now they're taking everything that we are and also looking at who this person is as a person. Do we want to spend time together? Because we should want to do that. Yeah. And I think that they have a vested interest. Our current team members have a vested interest in not wanting to see somebody pull that apart. And we have had some that were new hires that were wonderful people. They were honestly wonderful people. If we were going to go have coffee together, we could talk probably for a couple hours. It'd be awesome. Yep. Working together was maybe a different story, and we just saw things different. And that doesn't mean that I'm right and that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're right and I'm wrong. It just means that we're not rowing in the same direction. And I was a little afraid the first time I terminated somebody. I felt like lightning might come down and get me. But that's also a purifying event. And I think I can think of some situations where if I had not terminated somebody, it would have been problematic for the rest of the team to see you continue to tolerate less than what everybody else is held to. Yes. And so I think that there has to be a bar that, like, this is just like whatever our practice name is, this is our bar. We never go below this. It's only here and up. And if someone just can't get there, you've helped them as many ways you can, and they can't get there. My experience has been that it's probably better to say, you're an awesome person, but this is your last day. I had a wonderful teammate at one point in time who was honestly just one of the kindest people, but she couldn't wake up on time. And I'm embarrassed to tell you how many times she was late. It would make me look bad. So I'm not going to tell you, but I will say this. I bought her an alarm clock.
I remember.
I bought her so this alarm clock, I think it was called Clocky. It had wheels, and you'd set it on the nightstand. And when the alarm went off, lights flashed and it flew off the nightstand and just buzzed around the room until you got up to get it off, to turn it off. And so I just distinctly remember this event. I pulled her into my office. I was like, look, I'm giving this to you today, and this alarm clock has a name. Its name is Grace, because I'm extending a measure of grace to you today, and you have to show up on time. You can't be late. But ultimately, I wanted it more than she did. And that never, ever works. And that's true with patients wearing rubber bands. That's true with patients brushing their teeth. That's true with outcomes. It's true with success in the work. Like, if you want it more than somebody else, it's probably not going to work. And anyway, she's still got the alarm clock, and hopefully she thinks of good things when she sees that, but it just didn't work out. I don't buy alarm clocks for everybody.
I remember that story and thought it was so wonderful. But I think to your point though, you made a really good point. You wanted it more than her, and I think a lot of times, especially when we're newer at managing team members and being in the role of being an owner of a practice and having employees, it definitely, we tend to, I think in the beginning, sway or bend a lot more than we need to. And as we don't want to become so rigid that it becomes a toxic environment on the other side of it either. But there is definitely, I think, team members are looking for our doctors to stand in their space as the leader of the practice and lead the charge in whichever direction we're going. And what you just don't want is everybody moving in their own direction because they think that's the direction that they should be going, because there is nobody leading from the front. And I watched from afar as you have matured and come into this. And I'm not meaning it as if you were a young newbie, even when you were stepping into this, but it is just so fun for me as a consultant to just watch my doctors blossom into these amazing leaders of their practices and have a team that will literally follow them. They're like, you say left and we're going left. We're not even questioning it. That's the way we're going. And I hope that for all of my doctors that they're able to really come into that. But it's definitely, I think, even more challenging in an acquisition, because most of the time you're not getting to pick who starts out on your team, and you're not getting to have all of the decisions from the beginning.
Yeah. I know we've talked a lot about employees, and I definitely don't want to make it sound like I'm an HR expert. I'm not. I'm a small practice with a small team, and God's just been really faithful to bring some great people along. Acts 17:25 says that God gives us life and breath and everything. And any good team members I have are because God has brought them to our office and they've continued to want to be here. And I'm not the most gregarious guy. I was never life of the party. I was never a popular kid, but I do deeply care about people and I want the best for them. And hope that for all the faults that I bring to the table, maybe some of those redeeming qualities are things they make up for it a little bit. Because like I said, I genuinely love my team, and I would love that for everybody. Because if you don't like your team, I think the first question you got to ask is, why am I still doing this? Like, am I leading in a way that's not right? Or am I unwilling to make the hard decision to get a new team? Or do they just not see the vision? But that's a really hard thing if you go to work every day and you don't like the people that you're with. And so I just say with all thankfulness that I love the ladies that I work with. Like I said, a part of my heart that will always belong to those team members. So I'm thankful for that. But I am a sample size of one. Okay. So I'm not saying I'm an HR expert. And tomorrow the wheels could come off. I have no idea. And that's the crazy part about this whole thing, is that you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know. And maybe there's a follow-up to this podcast when the wheels come off, and then you can ask me how I'm doing.
I know that even if the wheels come off, that you're going to get through it. You're going to walk through it, and we will always come out on the other side.
I'll have to have you. I'll have to have you back for another year.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that. As we finish up, I know you and I could just talk and talk, but as you look back 10 years in review, let's just kind of talk about, to anybody that's out there, what would you say if somebody's considering doing an acquisition, or maybe even a startup, but especially an acquisition? Because you hear it like I do. the industry, gray
Yeah.
clouds. Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's such a bad, maybe this isn't the industry. You guys wasted your money, all the different things. And I want to shout hooey from the rooftops about all of that. What would you say to somebody if they're really considering, I might have a great opportunity, or I'm willing to bet on myself and take an opportunity to move outside of something that feels comfortable, like a guaranteed paycheck at an associateship job? What would you say to them?
I think instincts are worth listening to. You know me well enough. I am a Christian of
Mhm.
a deep spiritual trust in the God of the Bible, Jesus of Nazareth. I I think prayer for me is a big part of this. Thinking about what you're doing, committing it to the Lord, seeking counsel in the wisdom of many counselors is success. The lone wolf strategy generally isn't a great one. So ask people that know you well, do you think I am a good fit for this? Do I have the personality for this? Do I have the character for this? Do you think I can make this happen? I think often what we jump to is just the money. Just the money. Is it going to cash flow? Can I make money? Can I pay my bills? But remember, I think my parents always told me there's at least four parts to every person that you have to attend to: spiritual, mental, physical, financial.
Mm.
And too often, I think we get stuck on just the financial. And even if you get a great practice and you make gazillions of dollars, but you've neglected spiritual, mental, physical, you're not going to be happy.
Mm.
And I just talked with a friend recently who was telling me somebody that he had connected with who makes far less than him. But that guy who makes far less than him is wanting to check in on my friend who makes more money to make sure he's doing okay. And I just think it's a recentering moment for us to realize that the money's never going to make us happy. I think it's Proverbs that talks about money sprouting wings and flying away. And Deuteronomy says that God gives us the ability to produce wealth. So any of these things that we have to hold loosely, but we need to make wise decisions too. We have to count the cost before we do it. So what advice would I give? Sorry, that's sidetrack. Ask yourself what you want. Think that the ownership part can be very rewarding. It's hard, but life is hard. Like, I think sometimes the voices, especially the big voices in our industry, they're frustrating to me personally because they make it sound like everybody should just be rolling around in money. And if you're not, you're doing something drastically wrong. And they don't even need to know you. They can tell you what you're doing wrong. And I think that's just unhealthy. It's unhealthy. And really, if you have a wife and kids or you have a husband and kids, your first ministry is at home. Like, take care of your family. If you make all the money in the world, but your family falls apart, how much would you give to put your family back together? So do it for the right reasons. If you want this because you care about doing things the way that you think is right, you want the autonomy to do that, and you're willing to take some of the blows along the way to make it happen, then do it. You got to have a bank that's going to loan you the money unless you're independently wealthy. You got to have an accountant that says this is going to work. You got to have a lawyer that's going to draw stuff up. You got to have Jill to make sure that you can survive when the wheels fall off. But you can do it. We do great things. We have great outcomes for people. We change lives. I was a college student when I got braces, and my orthodontist probably didn't feel like he did all that much for me, but he closed a diastema in the front for me. And that was a game changer for me confidence wise. And so I think our mission statement says that we exist to improve lives by improving smiles. That's the whole reason we exist. If that's what we're really trying to do, and this is how you think you can do it, then great. I just think what bothers me a little bit is that we've kind of commoditized what we do, and it's just become like you're hiring something out. I'm hiring an orthodontist. This is just so much bigger than that. Here, I got to show you something real quick. I'm going to go off camera for just a second.
Yep.
I have a folder. This folder is titled Personal Notes. And these are all things that patients have given to me.
Oh.
And I keep those because some days are better than others. Sometimes you need to read a note.
Yep.
And just
Yep.
remember why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think it was Jerry Sampson that said, we're in the business of improvement, not in the business of perfection. And that's been such a helpful thing because, again, we can't take biological beings and make them robots, but we can take where we're at and try to restore to something that's better. And you can change lives. And so I know it's not doctoring in the same way as cardiovascular surgery or brain surgery, or I had back problems this past November and had to have some help. It's not doctoring in that way, but it can be really significant. I've got a folder full of stuff to prove that. So
Yep.
I think if that's what you want and you want more than just the paycheck, go for it. And acquisition's a great thing. It's proven, it exists. Somebody's been doing it for however long. Yeah, you're going to have some ups and downs, and it's probably going to be like buying a house. You get the inspection, you think you know what you're getting, and then you get in there and you find out, oh, I didn't realize this was happening. And then you got to change stuff, but you own a house and
Yep.
you're not renting anymore. And there's good things with that. You can't be terrible at your job no matter what you do. You have to be good at your job. You can't go off and just be terrible. Even if somebody's paying you to do, they're not going to keep you. They're going to fire you. So I think whether you want to work for somebody, which is fine. I'm not saying it's not fine to make money, especially coming out of school. You got debt, you got stuff. I did it. But I would say don't be afraid because you have a marketable skill. You've worked really hard. You're probably a great person because you've made it past all these interviews. Don't sell yourself short. And just give it everything you got. If you're a spiritual person, I'd encourage you to entrust it to the Lord and recognize that he wants to give good gifts. Sometimes the gifts look different than you think they'll look. And I think it's Proverbs 16:9 that says, in his heart, a man plans his way, but the Lord determines his steps. And so life is going to take some left turns and some hard right turns. And at the end of the day, we got to decide if we're going to trust ourselves or if we're going to trust in something bigger, of which I do, and I've shared that before. So I'd say go for it. Get your ducks in order. Do the hard work to prepare for it as best as you can. But one of the most freeing things my wife told me when we were making a lot of these decisions, and I was in vapor lock for a while, she said, Richard, you need to give yourself the freedom to make a decision. And then if something changes, make a new decision.
Yes.
And that was so liberating for me because we're so perfectionistic that we think that everything we have to do has to be perfect the first time or we've failed.
Yeah.
And that's just not how life so far, 42 years in, has worked for me. Maybe for some it has gone different, but I'm trying to grow in that mindset where I want to make decisions that seem good at the time. And then if something changes, you make new decisions. And to be gracious with yourself in that, because none of us, even though I said you had near prophetic abilities, none of us is a prophet. We don't know what's coming.
No.
And stuff can happen, stuff can change, and then you just got to be ready for it as best as you can, making new decisions. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, thank you. And I just love that you're so candid and honest and raw with this because it really is all of that. And I would tell anybody too who's listening, if you're willing to take that step and stand in that space, you're going to do just fine. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to do the work, and you're going to have tough days sometimes, and you're going to have really great days sometimes. But darn it, that's just part of being a business owner. It doesn't matter what we're in. And that's also just life to a point. Some are going to be better than others. So again, thank you so much for just taking us on your journey. In the event, and you can tell me how you feel about this, but if somebody was listening and maybe they've gone through a similar experience, or they're just needing a safe space to talk to a peer or bring up maybe a thought or whatnot, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way, or find out a little bit more about your practice or whatnot?
Yeah, I think they're going to end up, they need to lower their expectations for whatever they're going to expect to come back. Lower the expectations. But email is probably just the easiest thing to give over this kind of thing. So just Richard@Clabaugh.orthodontics.com. And I'll just say who you are, and I'll do my best to get back to you. But Yeah, lower your expectations. We are just fellow pilgrims trying to navigate the way together. So I don't have all the answers and I'm an N of one. But I wish I would have had something like this 10 years ago when I was getting started and somebody that I knew would be open to talk about it. And that's one of the reasons I did this. When Jordan asked me, I probably would have just normally said no. But I would have killed to just hear somebody not paint it in a perfect way or make themselves sound perfect, because my story definitely wasn't perfect. My story was far from perfect, and it still is. But yeah, if I can help somebody, then praise the Lord for that. And if we get to be friends out of it, that'd be awesome. And we can laugh together, we can cry together. Things might go great, things might go terrible, but I don't think that defines you at the end of the day. I've tried, as time has gone on, when people say, hey, tell us about yourself or whatever, I've tried really hard to not lead with, I'm an orthodontist. Because I think we do that and it really boxes us in and we begin to think of ourselves in a really narrow way. And so I think we need to start by saying things like, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a son, I'm a member of my church, I'm a Boy Scout leader, whatever it's going to be. But start with those things, because those are the things that are probably going to make you far happier than just saying I'm an orthodontist. You got to make money, and this is how you've chosen to do that. You've gone through the school and now you got to do it, but you get to do it. But your identity has to be in something bigger than your practice, or else I think you're going to live a narrow life.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. It can't define you, for sure. Or it definitely becomes pretty, I think, I don't know, lonely at the end if that's all that you have.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
Again, thank you so much for such a great talk. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but the way I like to finish up Hey Docs is just do a little quick speed round. I got a couple questions
Let's do
for
it.
you if you're
ready.
ready to jump in. Okay. So
I'm nimble. I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What is one of your go-to strategies for getting unstuck if you're facing a tough problem?
You've heard me say it before. I think instincts are worth something. So whatever your first instinct is, I would lean into that. One of my team members over the course of time also told me, she's, you know what, we should pray about that. And I'm like, dang it, you're right. I should pray about that. So instincts and prayer, I'd go with that.
Okay, great. All right, how about this one? What is one piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career?
Do everything you can to prioritize time with your family. I know stuff has to get done at the office, but kids grow up way too fast. I've got 11, 9, and 2 at home, and my third born is already in heaven. So time just goes way too fast. So you got to prioritize that, and don't miss those memories. Take pictures, try to say yes to as many things as possible. Yeah, family.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Richard, thank you again for being here and sharing your story with us. I cannot tell you how valuable this is. And I know that this has hit home with some listeners out there. God put you in the right place and put you on the right path. And I know that you've just breathed into somebody's life. So thank you.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for your help a decade ago. Thanks for continuing to just be a friend. I value your whole team. And really thankful for who you are, for what you bring, for how you've helped us. You've been the same person for as long as I've known you, and same infectious laugh, same smile, same everything. And I'm really thankful for it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yep. Thank you. All right.